All right, welcome everybody. AWS Midwest Community Day in Indianapolis. Yeah! That's right, I'm so glad you're here. We have a very exciting presentation coming up. You are here for learning about adaptations as a self-taught developer. Let's get into it. Oh, I lied. Previous slide. Let's get into it. Welcome, my brothers and sisters. Today, I'm really glad you're here. We're going to go on a journey, one that starts with just hacking away at JavaScript, then turns into a career, building community, and learning computer science without ever realizing it. Got to go back to 2015, simpler times. 10 years ago, the internet was new, Left Shark was the meme. It's been 10 years, I can't believe it. But at the time, I was not doing anything technology related. I had gone through a number of different careers. I worked in finance, then I had a t-shirt business, then I did photo studios and food trucks and restaurants and catering, business consulting. Eventually, I taught myself how to code. How did I get started? With this project called NodeBots. A friend of mine was doing like a free STEM camp for kids at our local makerspace. And surprisingly, I get there, it's like 9 and 10-year-olds working on robots. And they're just making them work, wiring them together. And it was so magical, and I had to get in on it. So I'm like, can I try a kit? The 10-year-old's trying it, I should be able to do it well. And at the time, I had no idea what it was. But now I know that it was just JavaScript, Node.js being run on a Raspberry Pi, connecting to an Arduino that spoke a standard Fermata protocol over serial port. And just with a little bit of JavaScript, I was able to make this little 2-wheeled robot run around, go forward, go backward. It was very, very magical. I had never programmed anything in my life before that, and I was hooked. From there, I spent $300 on an open box Chromebook from Best Buy. I had a friend show me how to install Linux on it, and then I used free Code Camp to learn all the basics. In a true full circle moment last year, I gave a talk at Commit Your Code in Dallas. And this guy here, Quincy Larson, he started free Code Camp on his own, self-funded, and I wasn't the only developer there. Thousands of people have gone through free Code Camp to get into this business and to get into this as a career. If it wasn't for Quincy, I wouldn't be here. And it was really cool to meet him, shake his hand, and tell him what a big impact it's had on my life. But what kept me really motivated during 2 years of self-study? I was still in a non-tech job. I was raising a brand new baby. That's her. She's 11 now, but that was her. I was getting into technology, and the HTC Vive VR thing was brand new. And I found myself networking in circles where tech was like a primary point of conversation. So even with that little baby, she had fallen asleep on my back. So I still got to experience the future, because the learning to program was really opening up a lot of new opportunities for me. But what actually kept me going for those 2 years, and since then, for the past decade, has been a little unusual. I leaned into a creative force that had been powering the internet. The meme of Nicolas Cage as the one true god of the internet, and praising him. I found an absurd and inspirational figure in his work. Instead of trying to build serious projects, I built things that I thought would be fun and funny and interesting and artistic to me. I will tell you that early learning was way more enjoyable building the stuff that I wanted to build, and not my current mid to senior career where I have to deal with Jira tickets and user stories. Not nearly as exciting as just learning how to do all this stuff from the beginning. But I started to build more and more things, and I realized I came to this earth to preach about the power of Nicolas Cage. And that Praise Cage became this reminder that you can do anything without having a full plan for it, or without worrying about your fear and your doubt and your impostor syndrome. You could just go and do it, because the learning is the doing. And I'm going to ask you all right now to feel the power of Cage. And on 3, I want all of us to say Praise Cage together. And 1, 2, 3. Praise Cage! That's right, my brothers and sisters. A decade later, he still inspires me. So today I wanted to come out and give a talk about computer science and what I've learned without any math or engineering formal training. And I realized that the hardest part is the language that we use. My process of learning has been encountering the idea first, figuring it out, and then only later learning that it had a name and like a full course on it in school. At first, I was trying to wrap my head around the idea of abstractions and how they're a core basis of computer science. And it was too abstract for me to even understand. But I knew I was using things like inheritance before I actually knew what to call it. Inheritance is just something went down. Oh, my slides went down. Sorry. What if I turn on, you know what? I'll just move the mouse. Wiggling mouse. And so with a concept like inheritance, I was using it before I even knew what it was called. It's just, what relationships do objects have to one another, and am I going to need to reuse it again? If I need to reuse that relationship, I can define it through inheritance. That's all it really meant. But at first, I tried reading about object-oriented programming and software design patterns, but without any real experience, the ideas didn't really land. It was different than going through Free Code Camp, where I was just changing the color of divs and I could see the text go from like blue to yellow to red. But if I have to come up with like class plant extends tree, or class tree extends plant, and then there's a method grow, it's very kind of out of nowhere. And as developers, our job is to take these really deeply human ideas like bank accounts and translate them into a logical statement. And at first, you might as well have been talking about turbo encabulators and ambifacient loon Wayner shafts. If you haven't seen this YouTube video about the turbo encabulator, it's just making fun of all like tech terms and like technical jargon. So, what we're actually here today to talk about is Adaptation, the movie. It started to feel impossible how to talk about all this academic stuff. I'm just a dude fueled by special interests and playing YouTube at 4 times speed. But, my brothers and sisters, when I find myself in moments of doubt, when I'm not sure what exactly to do, I turn to my Lord Cage and I find the inspiration in a film called Adaptation. It's from 2002, and it's a meta-narrative about a writer who's blocked on adapting a book into a screenplay. So what he did was create a movie where he inserted himself into the movie and created a fictional twin brother, and both of those are played by Nicolas Cage. In the movie, he plays both brothers, and it's about opposites. One brother, Charlie, the main brother writing this movie, is overwhelmed, he's self-conscious, and paralyzed by the decisions that he has to make making this adaptation, while his brother, Donald, is loose, he's confident, and he's going to screenwriting presentations and just sort of doing what everyone else is doing, while Charlie just spends his time sulking, thinking that none of his ideas are original enough. So, that got me to my first dev job, just learning how to do some basic JavaScript, some basic HTML. But my very first job was in cloud, building on enterprise AWS systems. But not everything I had to learn at first was just about cloud. I really had to learn about software development practices, how to be on a team, words like big O notation. I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. When I interviewed for my first job, it was given a project, building it, and explaining it, and then I got hired. So I didn't have to go through a bunch of leak coding things, which I never would have passed. I still wouldn't pass them now, for sure. But I knew that I could make things work, and I could steer the code towards a vision in my head. But 10 years ago, it was very brute force. It was very naive. I was just Googling things and copying and pasting from Stack Overflow. I wasn't really seeing the entire system that was unfolding in front of me. And like Charlie, I was afraid that I would be spotted as an imposter, that I didn't actually know what I was talking about. It was like this giant shadow looming over me in my first dev position. But using that knowledge, I continued to build Praise Cage projects. In one conference talk very early on, I got into the Internet of Things, and I took the work that I had done moving around those robot motors to make Cage wave to you when you pressed a button on a web page. I used WebSockets, and it was wonderful. But at first, I was showing my prototype around, and the people at my JavaScript meetup were telling me I could use a REST API. It was the first time I'd ever heard those words. And I didn't know what it meant, didn't really know how to use it, but then I stumbled across Socket.io. It's a WebSocket library. And as soon as I got into sockets, that's when everything clicked. It was real-time feedback. I understood that messages could be put in a channel, and I didn't have to go through the semantics of a REST API. And I did all this not because it was particularly practical, but I thought it was just funny to do, and I thought it would be cool to see. But in learning that pattern, I can now look back and see that WebSockets are not the same as a REST API, and they're not really one is better than the other. They just have totally different uses. And I didn't recognize this as system design, and I certainly wasn't thinking of it as computer science. Then, oh dear. Uh-oh. My slides have gotten out of sync. All right, that's fine. Then, here we go. Idempotency and fault tolerance. This is another idea that had come to me because learnings came from failure. And this failure was about working on a system that had to process incoming events. In my head, it was straightforward. One request would come in and one record was created. And I learned about the concept of idempotency. Instead of trying to guarantee that something only happens once, we have to design it so that it's safe no matter how many times it goes through. And I was actually learning that correctness in a distributed system isn't actually about preventing a repetition. We see it all the time. It's about having that same operation happen over and over again and it being safe. The idea of state was something that I didn't really understand at the time either. People talked about managing state and state machines. But I came to the realization that even though it's a concept that's really abstract and hard to see, I remembered from my time in photography that this story, the motion of a horse, was created in 1877, like 150 years ago, because rich white dudes were like, I wonder if all 4 legs of the horse get up in the air at one time. And the guy who created Leland Stanford, hired a photographer to build cameras and develop high-speed photography. And in this, they were able to capture the actual moving parts of a horse. This is state. They were able to stop and debug a horse running at speed because our human eyes, we can't see the motion fully. That was state for me. But not all learnings come from failure, thankfully. I had some good ideas too. And another example, I had to build a system that categorized items. And I imagined it as 2 buckets, premium fruit and non-premium fruit. And how would I write a system that would take a fruit and put it in premium or non-premium? And it felt like a straightforward problem, but I was actually choosing between coding styles, whether I'm going to have an if statement says if premium fruit, throw it in, or if regular fruit, throw it in, and then don't worry about the premium fruit. I thought it was a matter of preference, maybe readability, maybe convenience. But what I was actually learning was how to model a set and making decisions about what belongs in a group and how that belonging is defined. Then I started to get a little mathy. I was not a math person. I found myself in set theory, taxonomy, classification, ways of organizing information. And like so many other moments in this journey, I wasn't consciously creating like a concept of taxonomy. I was just doing stuff and then realizing there was a pattern to be recognized later. Oop. Real quick, my name is Paul Chin Jr. I'm at SLS Guru. We're hiring for full stack engineers. So if you are a full stack engineer, want to come work with a world-class AWS partner, come chat with me. That's my QR code link. You can also check out some of my other projects. But moving on, I only got like 3 minutes. And then I learned about computational fluid dynamics. We are real far down the math hole now. I was a terrible math student, and I never saw a way to apply it up until now. It was last year, April 20th, on 4/20, I was celebrating the day, and I realized that my bong would make amazing noises because of the percolation and the water and the bubbling. I thought, how cool would it be if I made a simulator? And then that sent me down the rabbit hole. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm letting y'all know I'm getting into graphics programming and rendering pipelines and much deeper into the physics of what makes a bubble make noise than I ever thought I would. When I started the idea, I thought I could use an off-the-shelf game engine or maybe like a graphics library. I could just build it in React. But no, I spent 6 months, 11 iterations, and this is the first one where I pick a different bong. I don't know if you can hear it, but it makes different noises based on the kind of shape that it makes. And then it went to like the next level where I can adjust the parameters. And the way this thing is working is there's a Dino server running that does the simulation on the server side. It's all running locally, but does the simulation on the server side and sends snapshots of those events to the front end to visualize. So all of the harder stuff is like running on the server. And that was really cool to go through and figure out, but also learning that there is research and learning how to read through the research and realizing that when you publish these research papers, what they found is an actual constant in a formula to represent the thing they'd been studying. So because of their work, I was able to just plug my constants in and get something working. And that was definitely at a point I never thought I'd find myself, trying to figure out if I'm going to use a Lagrangian frame of reference or an Euler. Lagrange or Euler. But I didn't learn computer science in isolation. I learned it by adapting my understanding to match what was actually happening. Along the way, I watched a lot of tutorials, and you are all here as people devoted to a wide field of knowledge. Getting started is the goal itself. Just get started. Don't worry about being too formal. And the quicker you can name the work, the easier it becomes to find help. And I know I get hung up on terminology a lot because it feels like a way to gatekeep. If I use words like idempotency or another word that's but when I use those words, I don't feel like I want to gatekeep. But YouTube professors like 3 Blue 1 Brown, Veritasium, and Computer File, they really beefed up my referential knowledge for the last 5 years. And then I realized I started to behave like a researcher by accident. I tried something, I'd observe the result, and when it didn't line up with what I expected, That part became my new hyperfixation. In the movie adaptation, Charlie, he gets in his own way a lot, but he does have the ability to lay it all out in front of him and come up with a solution after seeing all the different pieces. And I feel the same way looking back at how these little concepts built up into a larger system of software development that I could become proud of. Now, when I think back to the beginnings of creating this talk and the hesitation I had, I think about adaptation. I think about how Charlie wants to do it the right way. And eventually he goes to his brother Donald and he says, I'm having this trouble. And Donald tells him to go meet the writer of this book that he's trying to adapt, to insert himself in the story. He's been trying to write the story without him in it. And the beautiful part of this movie is that it is written and he writes himself into it, and he writes an alternative version of himself into it so he can explore the range of emotions and vulnerabilities that he comes across in this process of adapting this book into the movie. He actually goes against his own instincts and follows Donald's advice to meet the author. Some spoilers for those who haven't seen it. From there, the film shifts completely. There's action and intrigue and mystery and drama, all of the things that he tried to avoid in a movie. But the movie is also about exploring passions, about overcoming the need to be perfect, and about creating connections in the world, because life is better when you live outside your own ruminations. It's about recognizing the scared parts of ourselves, creating a version of ourselves that is more confident, and trusting that growth will happen when we put the work in. I wanted to talk about computer science, and I wanted to avoid the slides that say data structures and algorithms, and instead show something more honest, something grounded in my experience. But at a certain point, I had to accept that those structures exist for a reason, and that terminology really does matter. And me trying to avoid them was just another way of getting stuck. And that tension between wanting to do it the right way and just go ahead and doing it, that never goes away. Part of me wants to understand everything before I get started, but part of me will just want to just do it and get it through. It's the same way that Charlie has to ultimately let go of the version of the story he thought he was supposed to write. I had to let go of the education path I thought I was supposed to go on. Like, in order to become a stellar engineer, I had to have a degree in computer science and like a master's in database theory. But I didn't need to do all that. I just allowed the work itself to change me, and I had to adapt. Praise Cage! Yeah! Wait, oh no, it went to sleep again. All right, so now that is time for questions. It's been a fast 25 minutes. Oh yeah, so the question was, the question was, what did I do with socket programming? Well, first it was the actual data transport between user interactions in the browser and actions that happen server side. So the hardware was being controlled by a node server, and those commands were sent over the serial port, but the user commands came in through the browser. So there were just click events, and on that click event, send data to server. That server then makes Nicolas Cage wave. I printed out a picture and put his arm on the servo arm, and then it would wave. I also streamed light sensor events from a light sensor, and it would cause the eyes of Nicolas Cage to glow brighter or darker, depending on how light and dark it was. And then I had another WebSocket thing here. If you see all those heads, every one of those heads was like a person connected to it. And then whenever a person rotated their phone, it would get that accelerometer data and turn the head of Nicolas Cage with it. Yeah. Oh, there's another Nicolas Cage thing I did where I made it face off. And you had to show it a picture of Nicolas Cage, and then it hit, at the time, like an AWS recognition API that had it knew celebrities. So if you sent it a picture and you told it what is in this picture, it would come back, Nicolas Cage, male, brown hair. And if it said Nicolas Cage, the app let you in. So that was my face auth project. Also, I did, so these WebSockets, this was cool because these were serverless WebSockets through API Gateway, and when they were brand new. So it was cool to be able to do WebSockets without a long-lived server. And I guess real quick, if you want to praise Cage on your own time at home, you can go to praisecage.com, where you will find all the Nicolas Cage movies paired with a standard browser API and some boilerplate starter code that you can get going so you can learn both about a Nicolas Cage movie and a standard browser API. So you get web dev and Cage together. That is praising Cage. Yeah, figured I'd show that too. Anybody else got questions about Nicolas Cage, about cloud engineering? Yeah?
What's your favorite Cage movie?
That's a tough one. Right now, it's probably Dream Scenario. It's a Nicolas Cage movie with A24. I like that movie because it's finally him addressing the fact that he's a meme. In all of his interviews, up until very recently, he was always kind of like, yeah, I know it's a thing, but I don't really pay attention to it. He's not on social media, and he doesn't really pay attention to the meme stuff of it. But now, because he's being interviewed by all these Gen Z folks, that's all they want to know about is the memes. And he has to go on press junkets for Spider Noir that's out right now. So he's had to deal with it, and I think Dream Scenario really has a lot on that relationship that he has and the parasocial relationship that I have with him, and through the movie, it really makes a lot of sense. That's my favorite one right now. My previous favorite one was Adaptation, because it's just a sweet movie. I literally have like 8 talks, and they're all Nicolas Cage movies and cloud architecture. I did one on step functions and stealing the Declaration of Independence. I've done ETL pipelines, serverless ETL pipelines with Gone in 60 Seconds. SQL versus NoSQL with Ghostwriter. And the next one I'm working on is going to be with Lord of War. Yeah, I'm still working on that one. It's probably going to be about like the AI industrial complex in Lord of War. Praise Cage. So thank you all so much for your time, and appreciate you coming and checking it out. Yeah, that's it. Let the folks know at the conference that this was a good one. This was the best one. And yeah, check me out online, Paul Chin Jr. everywhere. Hit me up on LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and SLS Guru for cloud development, and we're hiring. Awesome. Thank you.